subject of this morning's panel on the decline of the mainstream media. Chairing the panel is Raheem Kassam, one of Britain's brightest young conservatives. He's the editor-in-chief of Breitbart London and recently did a tour of duty as chief of staff to Nigel Farage, chairman of the fast-rising UK Independence Party. He explained to me that the Conservative Party really isn't all that conservative. Also on the panel will be Nick Adams, the young Australian best-selling author and Fox News commentator who spoke at the summit last year, and you'll be able to recognize him. He's the one with the deep South accent. Ashley Dobson, a proud Texan and editor of RedAlertPolitics.com. Warren Smith, vice president of World News Group. You may be familiar with their magazine, World Magazine. A radio host, a newsman and the author of several books, and another guest from across the water, Ben Harris-Quinney, president of the Bow Group, a British think tank, and someone told me that this is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, conservative British think tank, and it's the one that was the favorite of Margaret Thatcher. So please welcome Raheem, Nick, Ashley, Warren, and Ben. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Just a small note of housekeeping. You know where to go and file out in an orderly fashion if there's a fire. Your restrooms are right outside if you need them. And if the Supreme Court makes a decent decision, the pigs will fly there, there, and there. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank the Colorado Christian University, John Andrews, Bill Armstrong, and all of you, really, that have made this possible. It's a testament to you guys, to the organizers, and the forward thinking that we have on this panel people from all over the Anglosphere. We have people from Australia, from Britain, and from America. Even a penal colony, you know, I might add. But you know, the reason for that, we have to think about this, is that in Britain at least, I can say from first-hand experience, we are at a minimum 10 years ahead of you guys in terms of how our politics and our culture is declining, how the left is making inroads, and how the Conservative Party in particular is willfully losing the battle. And we want to tell you about our experiences, and we're here to learn about yours. You know, if I told you that in the press recently it has come to light that a former member of the House of Parliament allegedly raped a child in the House of Commons, you wouldn't believe me. This is how far our political corruption has gone. If I told you that the BBC refuses to say that the thousands of men implicated in the Rotherham child grooming scandal are those from a Muslim background. They don't even say South Asian, they don't even say Pakistani, they certainly don't say Muslim. You wouldn't believe me, but this is the situation we face. We are 10 years ahead of you in terms of statism, in the abandonment of values, traditional values in our country, and in terms of the corruption at the very heart of our politics. But it's not all about politics. This is also about culture. I'm the editor-in-chief of Breitbart London, which opened early on last year as a bureau of the Breitbart News Network. And Andrew Breitbart himself is known for saying that politics is downstream of culture. Elections are important, but it's not all that's important. What we need is great culture warriors like the people you see to the left and right of me. And I was asked, why as a British man are you going to speak at the Western Conservative Summit? I said, I thought this was about Western civilization. And it is about Western civilization. The people in this room are the people that are standing up for the values that were enshrined 800 years ago in Runnymede in Windsor with Magna Carta. The values that are enshrined in your US Constitution. And I don't mean enshrined like gay marriage is enshrined in your US Constitution. I mean really enshrined in your Constitution. That's why I am so delighted and honored to introduce to you the people here on this panel. They are the cultural warriors taking your fight, our fight, to the airwaves. And on that note, I'd like to introduce Ashley Dobson from Red Alert Politics. Thank you.
Thank you. So at Red Alert Politics, it's a millennial news site, and we do a lot of the culture war. We focus a lot on politainment, which is where politics and entertainment intersect, and particularly for the younger generation. And it's so tempting to blame this decline of the mainstream media on kind of the changing of technology and the changing models of how we consume media. But I think it's really come down to the changing in trust in the media, because basically there's no reason to trust the media anymore. There was a study from the Harvard Institute of Politics in April that polled millennials, and it found that just 12% of them trusted the media, which is less than they trusted Congress and Wall Street, by like over half. And that's a stunning indictment, since everybody knows that trust in Congress is pretty much always at a all-time low. And when you think about what's happening in our media today, it's easy to see why. I mean, look at George Stephanopoulos. His ties to the Clintons go back far beyond an undisclosed $75,000 donation to the Clinton Foundation. And Brian Williams, who willfully lied about his reporting in Iraq, just so he could be a part of the story. And he's come out and said that he thought he deserved a bigger role. I mean, that is not the media that we deserve. People here want the truth, and that is what people are looking for when they turn to their media, and they're not getting it. And I think a lot of people condemn this Facebook culture that we have, that people are getting so much of their news from Facebook. But I think that it actually shows that they're looking for more trust in it. And I think it's because their Facebook friends and this curated news feed that they've come up with is a voucher of trust. They trust their friends. They trust their friends and family with it. And if their friends have posted something, the people that they care about most, they know that it's worth their time. It's something that they can move forward with. They know that it's something that somebody out there has put a stamp of approval on. And I think that that's kind of where we need to be moving forward with. Obviously everybody pretty much is on Facebook, but it's definitely, I think, a next step out there in the media wars.
Thank you very much, Ashley.
Hi, I'm Warren Smith, and I'm with World Magazine. I think there's a copy of World Magazine on the table or in the chairs, so good, great. Got a lot of World Magazine readers out there. I'm grateful for that. Thank you very much. I'm going to, first of all, reinforce some of what Ashley said and maybe pivot a little bit and talk about some things that we do at World, some things that I think conservative media should do and needs to be doing more of if we are to gain that trust, if we are going to be that trustworthy source that Ashley said that not only young people, millennials, but I think all of Americans really need. Number one is that I'd like to advocate for what I call the recovery of storytelling. My friend, a musician and novelist, Andrew Peterson, is fond of saying, if you want someone to hear the truth, you should tell them the truth. But if you want someone to love the truth, you should tell them a story. And I think that one of the things that conservative media, Christian media in particular, need to do is to recover the lost art of storytelling. The left is great at storytelling. They have turned people like Harvey Milk and Matthew Shepard and many others into martyrs and heroes. And those stories, by the way, are largely false. We have the unique advantage of actually having a true story that we need to be telling, and we can tell. And I think if we recover art of storytelling, it'll make a big difference in the way we do things in the world. Number two is that I think that we should hold on loosely to the label conservative. I want to say that I'm an out loud and proud conservative, but I would also point out that labels like conservative and liberal are relative titles, relative labels, and they depend in part on the culture. A man like William Wilberforce, for example, who ended the slave trade in Britain, would have been called a progressive in his era. Because of the stance that he took against an establishment, crony capitalism kind of culture that was making money, that was getting rich off of the slave trade. So I think that while in this moment, being a conservative is something that all of us can hold on to without embarrassment, I think that we should be more focused on telling the stories of the good, the true, and the beautiful. It's the truth that we should be focused on and not necessarily what the latest conservative meme is. And the third thing I wanted to mention is to go back to that idea of trust that Ashley mentioned a few moments ago, and that Rich Bott mentioned at the opening of this panel when he said that there's just been a proliferation of media and technology in the last 20, 30, 40 years, and that's exactly true. The great news is that's created gaps for conservatives and Christian journalists to move into, but it's also created a lot of noise. Some of you may be familiar with Nate Silver's book, The Signal and the Noise. I think what conservative media and Christian writers and journalists have an opportunity, but also an obligation to do, is to be the signal in all of the noise. That we have got to earn the trust of our listeners, of our viewers, of our readers, and create an impression with them that we are the go-to folks whenever they are trying to find out what really is good, true, and beautiful that they should embrace. And finally, and I know this is going to sound a little bit like shameless self-promotion because I do work for World, and we have a nut that we need to crack, a financial nut every year that we need to crack. But I would also like to say that we need to stop feeding the beast, that we need to stop supporting with our eyeballs and with our dollars the liberal media that's telling this false story of the world. National Public Radio has a budget of between $150 and $200 million a year. There's not a major daily newspaper in America in, say, the top 50 markets that probably doesn't have a budget of at least $50 million. I can tell you that World's budget is about $10 million a year, and that's probably pretty robust compared to a lot of the conservative and Christian news outlets out there. The amount of money that conservatives are spending on liberal media would create a robust conservative and Christian media in this country. And I think all of us need to take a good long hard look in the mirror and ask ourselves, where are we spending our time? Where are we spending our money? And can we redeploy some of that time and energy towards conservative and Christian media? So thanks a bunch.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Western Conservative Summit. America's had a tough couple of days, but freedom is alive this morning, isn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, the decline of the mainstream media is palpable, it's undeniable, the reality of it is incontrovertible. The question I wish the mainstream media would ask themselves every day is the question that I ask myself every morning when I get up. Why be politically correct when you can be right? Ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream media chose their sides a long time ago, and they only want to play unopposed. If you are a Democrat or some kind of leading leftist, I'd get tougher questions at the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A on a Sunday morning, and they're not even open on a Sunday morning. The mainstream media is oppressive, discriminatory, and unjust. It extinguishes confidence, impairs judgment, entrenches division, and preaches victimhood. The truth is the casualty of today's mainstream media. It has diminished American patriotism. It has diminished America's role in the world. It is the genesis of anti-Americanism everywhere. And it is our role, our duty, we are honour bound to fearlessly repudiate, to replace our grudging equivocation with fearless repudiation of people that peddle mistruths, cultural dietitians in the mainstream media that believe they know best, that they know better than us, and that deliberately distort rather than fearlessly tell the truth. The mainstream media, like the left in general, somehow always choose evil over good, the ugly over the beautiful, the lesser over the better, the profane over the profound. And that's why it is so incredibly important. It is pivotal that we stand up and we fight. We won't win this culture war by cancelling our cable subscription. You don't expect to win the football game by getting off the field halfway through. We need to study our opposition. We need to understand our opposition. And we need to beat them at their own game. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the media is nasty and vile toward America and toward Israel. If you were to read the papers, listen to the radio, watch the television, you would see that the media reports as if there is no difference between Palestine and Israel. But how do you possibly account for the difference between Tel Aviv and the Gaza Strip? The difference between symphony orchestras and IEDs? That's the difference, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what we have to fight. We have to seek the truth and do it all the time, unceasingly, unfailingly, because America's fortunes rest with us arresting the mainstream media and their falsehoods. Thank you.
Well, good morning, new subjects of the oligarchy. From my travels, it has been my experience that it's always a good thing to be in a country shortly after a coup takes place. You never know what you can get, and I am prepared, I announced today, to pledge allegiance to the rainbow in return for at least 100 acres. My ancestor commanded troops for the British at the Battle of Bunker Hill against the troops of the US Revolution. And it's interesting reading his dispatches because he fought for Britain because he was ordered to, and he loved his country. But he understood and respected the green shoots of one nation under God that was emerging around him. And he knew Britain could not hold out against their cause. You shot him in the head. He survived, but he didn't return to the battlefield. But I think if he was facing a military led by Obama, he would have returned to the battlefield because he didn't believe in what America stands for today. But imagine, if you will, a nation where every significant media outlet, every branch of government, every bank is run from the same small part of one city, where there are no conservative universities, broadcasters, or mainstream media outlets, where the same few hundred people control the entirety of the national debate. That country is Britain in 2015. So, from a political and news media point of view, compared to Britain, America is still in good shape. If we had just one Fox News channel in the UK, we would be a very different country.
If you can simply hold what you have in plurality of news media, geographically and politically, you can still change your nation back to its founding principles. But the important point I want to get across to you today is that for my generation and those younger than me, they do not get their values from political leaders or the news media. Most under 35s get their information today from the entertainment media. And that's not just how America is learning about itself, it's how the world knows America. They know America by Sex and the City, by Leonard Dunham, not by Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. Your most powerful newscasters are Johns, Oliver, and Stewart today. I think the reason for this is that we have forgotten the fundamental truth of the free market. We have to make products people want to buy again. Google, Facebook, MTV, these are all new institutions of the left, not because people were clamoring for the values they promote, but the products that are vehicles for those values. The real question for conservatives is not actually who will be the next president of the United States, but who will be the next Taylor Swift. We are, as Christians, in a global culture war. Its battlefield is the media, and that transcends all borders. We must unite across borders, not to take on the mainstream, but to become the mainstream once again, as we were so recently. And I urge all young people here today to consider a career in the media and as entrepreneurs, and not just as politicians and lawmakers. We must build new pulpits to speak to the world. And if together our truth can be broadcast, I believe that America can once again be a country worthy of shooting my family members in the head. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you all agree that we've heard some very interesting and things that we have to act on over the next few. Well, when we leave this, immediately after we leave this hall and leave this amazing conference, I want to firstly get a time check if I can, because I can't see the timer down there. So if there's anybody from the, what's that? 4 minutes 30. Right. Well, I picked up on something that Warren said, which I'd like to explore with Ashley, and that is memes. Ben touched on it with the whole Taylor Swift thing, who is basically a meme in and of herself nowadays. But I just want to ask you, Ashley, in terms of, firstly, just for everyone that doesn't know what a meme is, if you just quickly sum it up, and how important are they in this, or is it just a fleeting thing?
Well, I don't know the best way to describe them, but you see them all over. They're like a quick picture with funny words and text over them. They get shared millions of times all over your Facebook and Twitter feeds, and they go viral, I guess, in the internet speak. I don't think that they're terribly important, but they have the power to shape a lot of dialogue. You see them. I think that liberals are actually extremely effective at using them. They have this one from yesterday that after the Supreme Court ruling that I saw everywhere. That was the Confederate flag going down and the rainbow flag being raised up. And it was all over every feed that I had, and everybody was sharing it. And I think that, those kind of things they're a quick thing for people to see. They get pulled up on their phones. They don't really require any sort of information or background or truth, really, or any sort of nuance any more to that discussion. They don't have to know anything about free speech. They don't have to know anything about the real decision-making process in that. All they had to know was, oh, look at this nice picture, and they could just hit share really quick. So they do have the ability to share, truth or lies very quickly, usually lies. And I think that there's something that I think liberals have seized on much better than conservatives, because we're usually trying to spread truth, and those get a little wordy to be spread in these memes, and so then yours ends up with a ton of text on it, and it's just not very appealing to the eye when you're spreading them around. So that's kind of...
See, this, I think this is so important, and I want to get Warren's take on this, because you talked about storytelling. I think the liberals and the left have really developed this idea of storytelling through, false images, false quick pictures, and spreading lies as quickly and as they possibly, and in the greatest frequency as they possibly can. Warren, when you tell a story, how do you keep someone's attention?
Well, the books and, in fact, lives have been dedicated to answering that question. I will say this about that, though. I do think that we, as Christians, especially those as Christian journalists, but even those of us who are not journalists, we're all consumers of journalism, whether we are producers of journalism or not. So we have to be discerning in our consumption of journalism. We really do have to understand the storytelling process, and we have to understand the power that stories have on us. Also, just to comment on what Ashley said a moment ago, memes are really effective in semi-literate cultures, shall we say. Memes are really effective with the low information voter. And one of the things that I think it's important to understand as we're sitting up here on a media panel is that what happens in the media doesn't happen in a vacuum. What happens in the media, for example, is part and parcel of what happens in higher education in our country. I've heard it said, for example, that in the 1960s, there was the left went after the English departments of this country, and the right went after the White House. Well, by 1980, we had both been successful in what we had done, but now fast forward to 2015, and we see which was the more strategic victory.
Well, I'll let John take it from here.
I want to ask you, Summiteers, is it true we go to the ends of the earth to bring you the best conservative thinking from Australia to London and across America? We thank Raheem, Nick, Ashley, Warren, and Ben. Terrific panel. Thank you all. I wish we had another hour for you.